Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the CARVAKA podcast. This is Kushal Mehra. So, as India and Canada keep going back and forth in this, now I'll say round two of the India Canada standoff since last year, today's podcast is going to be focusing on. Yeah, we are going to talk about the High Commissioner interview that has come on CTV. We will talk about the Minister of External Affairs, Jaishankar's remarks just recently recorded in an event. We'll talk about all of that, but today's focus is going to be on something else. In all this noise and in all this rubbish that has been honestly portrayed on both Indian and Canadian media, and I'm not going to spare anyone here. The real issue that needs to be discussed is this on the screen, that there is a petition that was basically promoted for discussion. This was initiated by Gurpreet Singh from Delta, British Columbia. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you might wonder who Gurpreet Singh is. Now, Gurpreet Singh is no ordinary person. He's the husband of a NDP, former NDP minister, Rachna Singh, who recently lost quite convincingly in the provincial elections of British Columbia. Now, what does this petition demand? This is a petition to the House of Commons, which has been now officially being promoted by Sukh Dhaliwal, who is a Surrey Newton Liberal MP from British Columbia. And what does this demand? The petition to the House of Commons says the Air India bombings of June 23rd, 1985, that left 331 people dead, was the worst tragedy in the history of aviation terror before 9/11. The victims' families continue to wait for justice and closure. The Sikhs in Canada widely believe that this was the handiwork of for foreign intelligence to discredit their political activism and undermine their advocacy for human rights in India. The recent developments within the Sikh community in British Columbia gave credence to this perception. The Canadian government is looking into growing foreign interference in its political affairs. The Sikhs are living under fear since the murder of Surrey Delta Gurdwara President Hardeep Singh Nijjar in June 2023. And on September 18, 2023, the Prime Minister of Canada stated that there are credible allegations of a link between agents of the government of India and killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. So it was open for signature on August 13th, 2024. It was closed for signature on December 11th, 2024. All you need was 500 signatures for anything to be tabled in the parliament to discuss. Now, today, to talk about this horrific demand, because there have been two detailed investigations into the Air India bombing that have conclusively stated that the Khalistani terrorists were behind the most horrific terrorist attack in Canadian history, and before 9/11, the most horrific terrorist attack in North American history. I have with me Sanjay Lazar, who is one of the members of the families that had lost their lives. First of all, Sanjay bhai, thank you for coming, and I'm really sorry for your loss. Uh, um,
Thank you.
and I really applaud you for coming out in the open and talking about this so openly. And obviously I have Dan with me as always when it comes to Canada. But Sanjay bhai, when you look at a petition like this, as someone who has been at the receiving end of this horrific trauma, as a family member who lost everyone, how does it make you feel?
Thank you, Kushal Bhai, for having me, and good morning to you, Daniel. I know it's early morning in Canada. Uh, reading that petition and watching events unfold over the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 months, 1 year have been, nothing but a kick in the guts for us. It's been, as it is. We lost our families on the 23rd of June, 1985. We struggled for 20 years. Literally, we've got victims' families in Canada who form our own group, and they petitioned the government, they petitioned the RCMP. We chased down so many things, and they finally got a criminal investigation and a trial. And you all know what happened in that trial. Witnesses were killed, evidence was destroyed, people got scared or frightened to come forward, and you know uh, there were mistakes in the judgment as well, and the killers walked free. Thereafter, you also had Bob Ray's lessons to be learned, which was an inquiry held just between John Major and the criminal inquiry. And that was a whitewash of sorts. Finally, we had this Supreme Court's John Major that came up, and we had an entire inquiry with the powers to subpoena, which, of course, the Honorable Justice John Major fought for. And we finally got a report which clearly said who did what and when. Now, 20, 30, 40 years after the incident, and 20 years after we closed the books on John Major, you have this gentleman and a group of radicals, I'd say, from Canada, who are trying to open it all over again. And we've lost our family not once, not twice, thrice. This will be the fourth time, and every time we hear these new narratives that come out, let's have a new inquiry, let's have a new criminal trial. I wonder what has happened in the last 20 years that you're going to bring to justice. Is there some new evidence? The World Sikh Organization and all its groupies were before Justice John Major. They were defending Malik and Bagri in the trial, criminal trial. So nothing new has come about unless some new, witness has been born during these last 20 years, who happened to see something in the past. I can't see what sense it makes really. So it's devastating. It's devastating not only for me, it's devastating for all the families. I don't speak for them officially, but let me just tell you that I'm in touch with a number of them across Canada and in India and in Australia, around the world, and I see this as a grave, grave injustice.
So, Dan,
I mean, I see this as just like another example of like the moral inversion and decline of the West. I mean, this is where the stuff is, where it's like, you know, Israel's attacked on October 7th, and there's videos out of the rapes and the pillaging and the burning alive, and then within a few weeks, people are going to try and invert the narrative that Israel did it. It was the Hannibal Directive, and Israel killed their own. And it's like we are so morally lost that we cannot distinguish between the victim and the perpetrator of a crime, even if it's right in front of our face. And this is just another example of it, where it's, for a lot of communities now suffer from. It's not just, it's just the Jews or just this, that. Like, here we have a situation where, if you want to really go back on the Canadian handling of this, like, we treated it like it wasn't even a Canadian terrorist attack to begin with. Like, our prime minister called and offered his condolences to the Indian prime minister at the time. Like, that's what Prime Maroon did, and it was a Canadian terrorist attack. And that's kind of been the attitude of Canada for, like, let's say 30 years, and then maybe in the last 10 years, it's gotten to the Jagmeet Singh type worldview, where we're like, no. Now we're actually bringing in the perpetrators of this crime, and they're going to now get justice. We're going to hand the investigation over to the perpetrators of the crime, to domestic vote, bank politics, call whatever you want, but it's sick, and it's also perfectly indicative of the intellectual moral decay within Western institutions. And like, when people say, this woke nonsense or this radical nonsense, it's just university kids saying crazy things. They're 20, they'll get over. No, all, like, the last 10 years, these 20-year-old kids is having silly opinions. They're now staffing everything, and you have a few Khalistanis here and there in power that they feel. I mean, the fact that Sukh Dhaliwal feels confident enough to lend his name to this in Parliament is insane. It's insane. It's like a sitting U.S. senator, like, doing a 9/11 truther bill to get the global. Like, who would put their name to this? It's insane that he puts his name to this. And but here we in Canada, where you could just do this, and then, if you're part of the Liberal Party, and the Liberal Party spends billions of dollars on the media, you just can feel confident that Katie Telford will pick up the phone at CBC, CTV, Global News, or whatever, and just say, don't do this story. Instead, run this story in the way that, we're trying to get justice for the victims. Yeah, don't talk to any of the victims' families. Let's talk to Hardip Singh Najjar. That will be who we are. And that's the state of the country. And it's so blatant that, like, I don't know what to say. And this is the type of stuff that you can go back to, like, why is India mad at Canada? And why does India not trust Canada? And why does it's because this? It's because of this. Because we literally, as a country, cannot tell that if there's a man with a gun pointed at a child's head and says, "I'm killing you because I want to murder you because you're part of this identifiable group," bing, bang, boom. If he did that on Wednesday, by Friday, he'd be a hero. Wednesday, we might be, oh, Thursday, both sides. Friday, actually, he was right to do it because he's fighting against colonialism or something. Who knows?
So, just to back you up, and I'm reading directly from an article written by Christian Luprecht and Joe Adam George for the National Post. And yeah, you're actually not that quite off. I'm reading directly here. The federal NDP was seemingly approached first, but showed no interest, with party leader Jagmeet Singh and MP Peter Julian taking a pass. Dhaliwal's own Liberal caucus colleague, MP Chandra Arya, referred to the petition as, quote, an attempt to gain publicity and support for terror activities and, quote, promoting conspiracy theories promoted by Khalistan extremists. Imagine even Jagmeet thought this was too hot to handle. And Jagmeet is an open Khalistani.
Yes.
I mean, what is Dan? How? Dan, the thing is that, okay, if for a person like me who tries to create the balance between giving the Canadian perspective and the Indian perspective for the unique position that I am in, where I'm half here, half there, like how many times in the last 10 days have I messaged you, how do I defend this as from a Canadian perspective? Like, and I want to put this on record. Like, I can show screenshots of me messaging Daniel privately. How do I defend this from the Canadian perspective? Because I genuinely have tried to. That's why I got Terry Milevsky in. I wanted Terry to go after the Indian side in whichever way. And even Terry, beyond a point, could not defend Canada, because it's like, how do you defend these things?
You can't.
It's
I
just,
mean,
it's
my initial thing when I was telling everyone last year is I just when India started getting mad at Justin Trudeau, I just said, until Trudeau's gone, the best thing to do if you're in India is just pretend Canada isn't real. Just pretend it's a silly TV show you see every now and then. And then, oh, the prime minister comes on TV. It's like, oh, what's going to happen this week? What are his pronouns now? Whoa. That might be less enraging than like treating Canada like it's an actual serious entity. Now, harder to do if you live in Canada, granted. But if you're not in Canada, I would just pretend it's a reality TV show, and that's probably the most sensible way to get through the next year.
Well, Dan, I'll just tell you one thing. It's easier said than done when you consider that 270 odd families were Canadians. I've spoken to some of them last night. I mean, early this morning, Indian time, and maybe yesterday, late evening, your time. And, so many families are so distressed listening to the rubbish. There's an entirely new generation of people in Canada and in India. Obviously, most of them do not even remember or know or weren't born when this happened. So for them, the narrative is what they listen to in schools or in institutions. Like you rightly said, there are groups and levels and layers of Khalistanis who have occupied the middle ground, in whether it's in government or in institutions, in education, in hospitals. And they see these adults and these grown-ups as the ones with wisdom. And if they tell them, no, we didn't do it, the Indians did, that is the narrative that is building in Canada. And it is so painful and distressful for people, for us in India, for others in India. Okay, if a lot of Indians didn't know about it, I've made it my job to make sure we bring this to the forefront and correct the anomalies in people's minds of history. Fortunately for us, Justin Trudeau has been so silly that he's really put his foot in it, and it's exploded over the last 12 months, and we've been able to start talking about it all over again, and showing people where evidence was destroyed, where the wiretaps pointed at the finger, the smoking gun as it were, where the bomb was explode test fired uh, in Vancouver. All these things come up, and there are people who want the truth to be told. But I feel for families who are in Canada. I feel for the moderate, Indo-Canadians or Canadian Indians who are there. Uh, I feel for good-natured, down to earth, true Canadians themselves, whether they're Caucasian or whether they're Indo-Canadians, because they all know the terror that occurred there. Their country and government has spent almost 140 million Canadian dollars on this inquiry and the trial. You've got the evidence, you've got the records. It's huge, 2 volumes. We've got so many books and mementos of all that, and here you have a group of Johnnies who want to rewrite history. It's almost like saying that Hitler was the good guy, and uh, I mean, it's ridiculous. We can't even think that badly, and this is cruel to the Indians. So, I mean, I'm sorry. Whether you talk of Nijjar or whether you talk of Parmar or whether they're all proven terrorists. They were on no-fly lists. They were on most wanted lists. They were everything, and you can't do this. Not in my view. In civilized society, we don't do this. I always thought Canada was democratic, free, and a civilized society. Unfortunately, I don't see any of that. In today's world with its MPs' behavior.
Yeah, and it kind of makes me wonder what does Canada achieve. It has nothing to do with this, but since this has gone down, Shekhar wrote an article, and before someone thinks this is an attack on Shekhar, no, I have a lot of respect for Shekhar. Shekhar is someone I talk to regularly. But Shekhar recently analyzed ki yaar nahi, this is not an Indian problem. What has India and Canada got to do? Just wait. Just day before yesterday, there was a happy Diwali, the festival. There was so we have this annual Diwali function, a Mela. It was at the RBC Convention Center in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and there were multiple. There was the Lieutenant Governor of Manitoba, the Minister of Advanced Education and Training, Government of Manitoba. Then there was the Deputy Mayor, City of Winnipeg. There were many people. There were many people there, and people are saying, "Oh, how does this affect the Indian community in Canada, or how does this affect anyone in Canada?" Well, people who attended that event, I have sources who have directly attended that event, who messaged me personally and told me that this event has been, first of all, for the record, this Mela has been happening for 40 years, not one but 40 years, and this is the standard operating model of how events in Canada happen, whether it's not just the Indian community. I mean, I've been to multiple Jewish events, I've been to multiple Irani events. This is how it always happens. Everybody comes, they have Canadian flags, and they have the flags of their ancestral place. Where in the case of Jewish events, it will be Israeli flags. In the case of Irani events, it will be the Iranian flag. And in the case of Indian events, it will be the Indian flag. Every single time, people play the Canadian national anthem first, then they play the Indian national anthem later on. It's a very normal procedure,
Yeah.
because it's not out of this world, and it's out of respect for two great cultures, right? Well, guess what happened on this 19th October, as per my sources? This is a rare occasion. The Indian national anthem was not played.
Oh,
There were a couple of flags, or 2 or 3 flags, as per my sources inside who attended that event, that the Indian flag was asked to be removed. When pushed,
that's serious.
it was allegedly at the behest of the people connected to the government in Ottawa.
Wow.
Now, my question to Shekhar and every single Indian journalist here is this not escalation? Does this not affect the Indian community? Is this not an Indian issue?
You could pull
And
the
Anand,
Jewish thing, and you could pull our classic strategy of stick your head in the sand and sleepwalk into oblivion. You could try that. That might work.
Well, for a change, also from my sources in the community, the Indian community, the Hindu community, for a change, actually showed a spine. And there was a Zoom call with some leaders where there was a severe lashing that was given to the leadership. It's like, what the hell is going on? I mean, how dare they? My question is, how dare they? What is this? What is this jingoism that is happening in Canada? If
Really,
this
it's
was something
really
that the
amazing.
Indians did in India, I would have an objection to it there too.
I mean, it really is amazing, the jingoism and the anti-India sentiment growing in this country is pretty concerning from all sides. Like you have, the neo-Nazis have decided to, focus on Indians, and then it's been kind of strange that, Justin Trudeau, who loves calling everyone racist, right? This was his favorite pastime from 2015 to 2023. Calling everyone who disagrees with him politically a racist, and a huge penchant for inventing fake racism over the last 10 years. But now that we have like this real spike in anti-Indian racism, I mean, the anti-Semitism thing, you understand, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, blah, 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 do that. But to see, like, especially with, you could say alt-right, like the Diagonal and the PP, whatever it is, that segment being so vile and racist, for the Liberals to just not even like, it's, yes, embrace it is strange, but you would have thought that Justin Trudeau would have been all over this, like, oh, white people being mean to brown people in a vile way. Like, you would think that's Trudeau's bread and butter. Like, now that there's like actual, verifiable racism out there, that you could screenshot some of this, you can clip some of these videos, you can have it. Like, it's classic Trudeau. Like, isn't this what Trudeau is for? Is like when white people are being mean to brown people, to get on TV, say, I'm the greatest, Canada's not like this, oh, we're going to fight all the racism. That's kind of what he's supposed to do. And here's the first time he actually has like a clear-cut racism problem where it's like, okay, here's whites being mean to non-whites. You can do this one, Justin. And where is he? And he's fomenting it. And it's like he's one of the main instigators. And that's the absurdity.
There's another thing, Kushal. When you talk of Shaker's article and stuff like that, we all know, of course, what Panoon has just threatened. He's warned everybody not to fly Air India between, until November 19th. That came out a few hours ago. But, there was also an incident a couple of days ago where somebody called Gurpreet Singh Harino got killed by a Khalistani terrorist or gangster based in Canada. So obviously, there is a sphere of influence still. I think that was Arshdeep, somebody who's based out of Vancouver, and shot somebody there because of what they were posting and because of what they were. So there is a huge sphere of influence from Canada over India and the Punjab still. Let's not ignore it. If India has the largest population of Sikhs, then Canada probably has the second largest. So there is a lot of overlap. We cannot ignore what's happening in Canada, just as Canadian Indians don't ignore what's happening in India. So there is a lot of overlap. It's not something within their country. You can't have terrorists running around shooting people and telling them that, oh, we're going to break away from India, we're going to do this, and then accuse, of course, extrajudicial killings. And to this, I come to our former High Commissioner or High Commissioner's interview yesterday, which actually, I don't know if you know, but Free Speech Canada blocked India from viewing it. Are you aware of this? The CTV link was blocked. We tried all night, we couldn't get it. Fortunately, we got somebody to send it across by mail or by Google and download it and posted it on X. So only X was really carrying it, and then later on YouTube started carrying it. But we in India are still blocked from accessing CTV. that interview. But he made it extremely clear over there on the interview that number one, neither he nor India participated in any extrajudicial killings. Neither he nor India, either put a hit on any of these people. They did not entertain any of these gangsters, and very important, that there were 26 extradition requests pending from India to the government of Canada, which had been ignored. He also said that they sent a request for a visa the day the flight was departing. Now, which country gives you a visa on the same day? Even if you're a diplomatic leader, you don't get the visa on the same day or at the time of departure of a flight. You've obviously got to apply. So it was a setup. It was pretty sure. Very important thing that Kushal and Daniel can both verify. I was told yesterday that within 20 minutes, 13 minutes of the Monday press release, the Monday speech going out, talking about India and blaming India, what you had was WSO and SFJ sending out press releases whilst the press conference was in motion, mind you, which either means they had advance notice or they were hand in glove with it. Which Panoon has later clarified that I had direct access to the PM's office, and I've been talking to him, talking to their people, giving them evidence. So it shows that there is a lot of murky stuff going on, which is not all clear. And in contrast to this, I would like to put forward what's happening in the United States. They've called the Indian team. They've showed them what they had. They've seen what the Indians had. They're now looking at connecting the dots. And I think, everything is going on through back channels under the radar or, through the court. And I don't see any slip ups there, either in that relationship or in the way we are presenting facts and getting facts back. So, there's a lot that I think is happening for domestic politics and domestic consumption in Canada, which perhaps should have been curbed. The urge to do that should have been curbed, because there's a greater relationship outside of this between India and Canada, which goes back decades. There's also a relationship of pain and grief that so many of us share with Canada, and so many Indians, and including the Canadian Indians who lost their families, who have relatives back in India. So there's a lot to lose here. And I think by pulling out the WMD straight away, I think the Prime Minister of Canada got it wrong this time very seriously.
Yeah, and just for those who are wondering what is there on the screen, I mean, Sanjay Bhai just mentioned the list of people who India has demanded to be extradited. You're literally looking at that list right now. I was one of the first people who actually typed this list personally and made a list on my own. I was like, these are the people, for the benefit of viewers, and I had even posted it on social media. And yes, India has 24 million Sikh people living there. Canada has 0.77 million. US has 0.7. UK 0.4. Malaysia 0.1. Australia 0.1. Outside India, there is 2.6 million Sikh members, and there are 24 million in India. And guess what? When the Pew polls survey the Sikh community of India, 95% say they love India. 75% say that if you're anti-India, you're anti-everything else. And it's a bad person will be anti-India. 24 million versus 2.4 million outside India. And in that 2.4 million also, most Sikh people love India, other than the loons who come out to my talks also now. Other than those loons. And Justin Trudeau, Daniel's Prime Minister, has basically decided to die on that hill, that one hill that nobody wanted to die on. But Justin Trudeau has decided, I'm going to find that one hill where I want to die on, and just going to go on and jump. And just to give you a brief idea, I mean, credit to Barkha. Before somebody says, yeah, where did I get these figures from? These are all from Barkha's channel Mojo. I mean, Sea Water did this survey, and it's amazing how Sea Water, I think they did it for Mojo, or I don't know, I'm not sure, but
No,
I
they
want
didn't
to
do it for Mojo. They'd done it earlier.
yet they'd done it earlier. So these are the numbers, and Barkha had shared it. These are direct screen grabs from Mojo. So I'm actually acknowledging where I got it from. So this is the Seawater survey, India's response to allegations made by Canada. Cutting across political lines, it is justified and necessary for national integrity. 53%. Cutting across political lines, justified, but overly aggressive is just 12%. So basically Indians are like, yes, do it.
Yeah, this has been one of the problems, like for India, and like and India Canada relations. In one, it's like the Canadians cover it, but as I've been saying around, like I'm sure Sanjay's heard me say this to him in one of the things, but like there's two issues here. There's did they or did they not, and should they not. Canada's only focus are did they or did they not, right? Did they do it? Did they not do it? This, that, okay, evidence, okay, that's the whole thing. But the real important thing here, like the core of these issues, is should they or should they have not?
Should
now,
they not? Yeah.
Right? Because you have a problem. Like if India, let's say, okay, let's go into this hypothetical. So in this scenario, India had zero involvement in anything. Everything is BS, and 0% touching from India. Okay, well, Hardip Singh Nijjar just gets killed in Canada. There's some elements within the Indian government that want to fist pump. And because Hardip Singh Nijjar is the head of the Khalistan Tiger Force, you can argue successfully, in my opinion, that he was running terrorist training camps in Canada, and he posed a significant and clear threat to the Indian people. So just like, Israelis celebrate on the streets when Yahya Sinwar was killed, or Hassan Nasrallah, you go, this is a terrorist. We got him. So you're going to have a domestic woo moment because of who the guy is. And that presents problems, right? So in the 0% thing, then you look at it from Canada's perspective, right? Canada should have just looked and even trusted me, like, oh, this is just like innocent gang war between the Khalistanis. The real response should have been, eh? And if you really wanted to get a response from India and you wanted to do something, this is not something you bring public. Like, listen, as I said, if the Indian government was accused of, instead of gunning down inside of Gurdwara, Hardip Singh Nijjar, the leader of the Khalistan Tiger Force, it had been a 9-year-old girl, Kaylee Kapoor or whatever, who was Little Miss Khalistan, who went viral for wearing a little Khalistan dress and just twirling around being like, free Punjab, and just like, and was going like the Greta Thunberg of Khalistan. If you had killed that little girl, then I understand going to DEFCON 1 as a country. I would die on that hill. Okay, I don't like Khalistan. It's an evil ideology. It's more than evil. It's an incredibly stupid ideology. I've read their stuff, but I'm not going to. Even if it's a little girl, even if that's her, like it's a child. Like that's an innocent life. Canadians are Canadians. I'm, against them. When it's a leader of a terrorist organization that snuck into my country 3 times and should never have citizenship, no, he's not Canadian. I'm not dying on this hill. You can't ask me as a Canadian to die on the hill of Hardip Singh Nijjar. You can't, right? So we have that. And then, and then if you go into the situation where it's India is 100% responsible, all these allegations are 100% true. India is running all the gangs, and Lawrence Bishnoi is living under your bed right now, and all that. Still, like, you have to deal with the fact that India thinks that this guy's a terrorist, and like you still have to, at the end of the day, deal with the fact that Hardip Singh Nijjar was the head of the Khalistan Tiger Force. So any way you slice it, the diplomatic response from the Liberals here is insane, absolutely insane. To jump the gun and then start accusing India without having the evidence locked and loaded and ready to go. It's mind-blowing. And like, even if you find out they're guilty, all you're going to get is a slap on the wrist. And for what? For Hardip Singh Nijjar? Why?
Well, I want to raise 2 points. One is, of course, that Kushal Bhai spoke of Barkha, and I'll go back a year and a bit when all this, when the Niger incident happened and Panun, she was the first one to actually break this story and revisit the 182 Kanishka bombing. She revisited the trial. She did a couple of shows with me and other family members who'd lost their loved ones. So of course, I'd give her great credit for all this. The other important thing is, which Daniel pointed out, if you go back, Kushal, to 2016, I'm talking about 7 years prior to his killing, there was a file that was given, a dossier by the Indian government to FBI as well as CSIS and the RCMP with terrorists. And one of the names on that was Mr. Nijjar. Okay, Hardeep Singh Nijjar was on that. And let me tell you what happened after that. He was put on a no-fly list by the US. The Canadians hadn't done it. Now cut to 2018, when the Prime Minister of Canada visits India. And he's flying with Mr. Sajjan to Amritsar. And of course, we had that embarrassment when he carried the one Khalistani person with him, and that guy was refused entry. But he's flying to Amritsar, and the then Chief Minister of Punjab, Captain Amrinder Singh, refuses to let him land until he meets him so he can hand over this list of 9 A-class terrorists who are on Interpol's most wanted list. And number one on that list was again Hardeep Singh Nijjar. And he was put on the Canadian no-fly list. Now, this is 2018 I'm talking about. Mind you, at that time, he had just met Gurpal Singh Panmun, and they'd started fighting the Interpol Red Corner notice. So if this person was entered Canada illegally, not once, not twice, thrice, if he was spotted and photographed in ISI camps in Pakistan, if he was running camps, in BC or wherever in Canada, if he was on no-fly lists of 2 countries, both Canada and the USA, what are you talking about? I mean, maybe a rival gang just bumped him off. And the guy was, why did you have him on a no-fly list as a Canadian government then? Why did you seal his assets? Why did you seal his bank accounts? This is what I want to know. It's another thing, destroying a relationship of 50, 100 years with another democratic country, the largest democracy in the world. But it's very important and pertinent to note, and everybody seems to have escaped this one simple fact. The guy was already on no-fly lists of 2 nations. He was on the Interpol watch list. So what? I mean, it's exactly like Daniel said. Yahya died, and
we had a moment of silence in Parliament for this.
I mean, God damn, can you imagine that? You
had a moment of silence, because this is what happens when people oppose Khalistan extremism inside the Liberal Party of Canada. This is from the CBC, January 25th, 2021. Brampton MP Ramesh Sangha dropped from Liberal caucus, accused of spreading baseless and dangerous claims. Wonder what those baseless and dangerous claims were.
Really?
The thing with Ramesh Sangha is, even before this, years before this, since I kind of got into politics and covering stuff for 2016, let's say, I've heard, and I heard before this, like Ramesh Sangha needed security to walk into a Tim Hortons in Brampton, like everywhere he went, because he was the Sikh minister. He was a Sikh MP who spoke up about Khalistan, and he faced constant death threats and harassment inside Brampton. But good on him for sticking to his guns and being a proud.
This is a brave Canadian. This is a true Canadian. This is a Canadian we should be celebrating.
Yeah, of course.
He's a Canadian patriot.
And I'll listen. I'll give him credit as a liberal. I'm sure I disagree with him on taxes and maybe across the floor, but I give it to him. I'll give it to Oso Desange. Like, these are real patriotic Canadians, and they tried to warn us. They still try and warn us, and we don't want to be warned. We don't want to have hard conversations.
And look at this. The National Post reported in 2019 that Sangha accused the Liberal government of pandering to Sikh separatists in a way that threatened to derail Canada's relationship with India. The man said this 5 years ago. This man said this 5 years ago. Quote, there is no doubt there cannot be two opinions that the Liberal Party is pandering to Khalistan supporters. The Post quoted Sangha as saying in an interview on 5AAB, a Punjabi language channel based in Mississauga, Ontario. One thing is for sure, when we raise this issue, it will raise an anti-India slogan or demand the division of India on some ground. In that, ultimately, our relations, the Canada-India relationship, will certainly develop cracks. Because Sangha is a Canadian patriot who actually cares for Canada, because bad relations with India, their ninth largest trading partner, are bad for Canada. But clearly, Justin Trudeau thinks differently. Why? Because there are 23 ridings in Canada, in urban Canada, that Justin Trudeau wants to win by pandering to Khalistanis. Because he thinks every single Sikh in Canada is a Khalistani.
And that's starting to permeate a lot of different people's worldview. But if we're gonna go, let's go. I mean, we're gonna cover this later. I mean, we talked about it later today, the BC election and all that. But one of the interesting results of the BC election shows that these Khalistani candidates aren't that good.
They lost.
They lost.
Most of them lost.
And the one Khalistani that was replaced with a white guy, he won.
Yes.
And I hope by me talking about this, it's not internal interference in your affairs. But
It is.
I'm Indian, I'm not Canadian, but I celebrated the loss. I just celebrated, the BC results. And I said, wait.
The problematic candidates that people like me and Kushal and our friends out west that were complaining about, we were talking to the Conservative Party and we can't do anything right now, and this and that, the ones that they were forced to get rid of, and then like too much, like Jagmeet Singh's old lady friend who blamed me. That was so funny. She's still blaming me and running around. They want her running. Yeah, she's crushing me. I mean, Khalistan loves me. Taken. Sorry, terrorist women. I am taken. I cannot become a Khalistani, and I apologize. But they all lost. They suck. No one likes them except inside. Like I heard this good thing from again, some internal sources in BC, which one of the Sikhs, non-Khalistani Sikh, told a friend of mine, said the party just doesn't get it. Like they don't understand these Gurdwaras. Like they think the uncles here run the Gurdwaras, but the sort of right, because your culture, right? The uncle culture. A lot of people understand it's not very North American, but treat the elders with respect, and the elders were coming in this, and that's the uncle. That's a bit of a double-edged sword sometimes, because often the young are hothead idiots, and we should listen to our elders. But also just giving people instant status as an intellectual just by getting old enough. Stupid people get older too. The uncles that just sit in these Khalistani Gurdwaras all day, they're not the leaders of the community. Like, yes, there's respect shown to them, and when the politicians come in, they think, these guys are in charge. It's like, no, it's their kids that have all the money and decision-making power. They're not hanging out at these Gurdwaras. They're off doing businesses. They're all most of the Sikh community that's has money is not rambling about Khalistan all day. They're off running a successful business or doing something else, or doing there, and they're not rambling about Khalistan all day. And if you want to actually reach the Sikh community, don't go to these Khalistani Gurdwaras, because you're just going to end up shaking hands with a bunch of bloviating uncles who aren't really pillars of the community, but they think they are, and all it is just Khalistan. And that kind of played out in BC. Is again, and what I love about this and what BC showed, BC's the west coast of Canada for Indians here. It's the most left-wing part. Okay. The provincial pastime BC is doing fentanyl and paying taxes, whatever it is they do. Okay. It's so far left. And it showed that this concept about the Chinese need a Chinese candidate, the Jews need a Jewish candidate, the Indians need an Indian candidate, the blacks need a black candidate. It's no, that's not, whites think that, but brown people will vote for a white guy if he's not a terrorist. Brown people, especially in Canada, understand they're in Canada, and they're not in any way offended or feel left out if there's a white guy running for office in Canada. This isn't a problem. This is not a problem in the Indian community at all. Like the Indian community doesn't have a problem. Like a white person is running for office in Canada. What? They're like, yeah, okay. What's his thing on taxes and what are the schools like? Again, this isn't this Gurdwara internal Gurdwara politics. I think all our parties are kind of just sort of caught up in this, and we think this is reality. But if you just run good candidates in these areas that don't blow up airplanes, they do better.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, all the so-called ridings in British Columbia where the Indians are in large numbers, the conservatives swept them pretty much. Those are the only ridings the conservatives actually ended up doing well, because in the rest of urban Canada, in British Columbia, the NDP actually held their own. So it's only the new immigrants that gave the conservatives any vote. So
and those in the interior, so like the country folk. It's the
yeah, so
country folk
basically
and Indians.
in the cities, it was the brown folks who ended up voting for them, the
Yeah.
good Indo-Canadian Sikh and Hindus, and the rest of rural Canada. So they are on one page, and then there are these, I don't know, you call them, whatever. They ended up voting for NDP. Khalistani loving, having a very low opinion of what brown people actually think, and it's tragic. But okay, enough of Canada bashing. But something that I wanted to you know uh, reach out to and discuss is, it's time for some India bashing here now. So Sanjay bhai, tell me, we have 4 memorials for the Air India bombing victims in Canada. What is the state of affairs in India?
That's another tragic relic of our lives. Ever since the bombing took place in 1985, 86, we went back for the first anniversary to Ireland. And, of course, the Irish government decided to put up a monument at the site, not at the crash site, but, the crash site is 90 miles out to sea. So it's in a place outside Cork, Bantry. It's Ahakista. So that's Sheep's Head Peninsula. And it's a very serene place. So the 3 governments chipped in, and one gave the land, and they put up a monument, beautiful monument. Right? I also know of, and I've been to the Canadian, at least 2 of the 4 Canadian monuments, and we began writing to the Indian governments. And I'm talking about starting with Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, and it's been 40 years. I think 6 or 7 prime ministers, presidents I've met. Some of them, other family members have met, during the Congress and the UPA regime. I remember speaking to an NDA prime minister, but we don't have a single memorial or a monument for what is or was the worst aviation disaster until 9/11. It was on an Indian aircraft. We had a number of Indians who died. Plus, I lost my entire family. I was orphaned as a young kid, as a 17-year-old teenager. I mean, I lost my father, my mom, my stepsister, my baby sister, everybody. So, and every year when I go to, when the anniversary comes around, I'm flying to Ireland or to Canada. You want that something to cling to, number one. Number two, it's very important to recognize, the place markings of history. This was such a significant terrorist action. People don't give it, or don't realize the extent of this canvas. Step back. We're in 2024. Please imagine these Khalistanis triggering off 2 bombs on 2 jumbo jets in 2 corners of the globe at the same time. My hair stands just even today. And I'm talking about 1985. You didn't even have the internet. You didn't have infrared. You didn't have Bluetooth. Look at these guys. I mean, either somebody was helping them who was outside of the sphere and in very high tech, espionage stuff, or there was something. And this is something that, as a tribute to remember, what terrorism can bring. was something so important. And I kept writing, praying, pleading, not only me, number of families. And I don't want to say that, I in fact know a family who's, in Canada, and they came down to India because they've got relatives. One of the ministers was related to them, cabinet ministers. We met him, spoke to a prime minister. This did happen. I can name the prime ministers, but I don't want to get into all the prime ministers that we've had since Rajiv Gandhi ji. And every one of them was literally spoken to, appealed, written. I've got the correspondence. Others have the correspondence. People have come in from Australia to ask. All we wanted was a little space for a memorial where we pray, and that's it. It's not a symbol of a revenge, or this is somewhere where you give thanks to God, and you pray that the family members who died in that. I will give credit, however, to the current prime minister in his first tenure. When I wrote to him, I didn't get a memorial. Let me make it clear. He sent it across to the then aviation ministry, and they sent it across. And finally, I got a little plaque, this size. So that plaque was smaller than the plaque that was on the coffin of my mom when we brought her home from Ireland. But it says, it is in memory, to commemorate the 329 victims of the Air India Kanishka 182. But where was that placed? It was placed inside a secluded, private, secret area where only people with identity cards can get in. It was, inside the airport terminal, not even terminal, not a public terminal, the engineering and in that space. And so no one else can, just people who are employees of either an airline or can go there. So it's really not something that, you want. So I've still reached out to the prime minister, to the foreign minister. I believe the time has come. We're 40 years down the line. I do know that during the earlier years, some, the Shiromani Akali Dal was one of the parties that supported a government. There's always been a little conflict with the Congress party, with the UPA, but none of them ever wanted this. And I do not understand why. Yes, if I had to look at what happened in Toronto this year at the memorial on the 23rd of June, I might rethink, because I saw Khalistanis attacking family members who had come to pray, which was shocking. I remember I was in Ireland and I saw that happening, and I was just amazed. And they allegedly said that they came to pay respects. You don't come to pay respects with pickets and with swords and with yellow Khalistani flags when you bomb the aircraft. I mean, it's ridiculous. Who killed all our family.
I mean, Kushal and I were there. Like, I was the one who saw them coming in, and I was one who
I saw that. Yeah,
confronted them, right? So I dealt with them, and then, but you could see, like, so I saw what was going on, and I was just like, no, like, we're not going to let this happen. So I went up with the phone, and I just confronted them, and I just like, no, you guys, you terrorists. And I shamed the police. I said this, that. The police thought they had a permit. I'm like, no, the other people have a permit, whatever. But after, set the line with the police, you saw the Khalistanis. They tried to come right where the victims' families were, tried to come to a memorial. And, like, we had to physically, like, stop them and set their ground, and then, kind of whip the police into doing what they do it. And then, like, okay, we ended up moving them far away, and you could see the thing, like, they ended up being far away. But in Ottawa and in was it Surrey? I can't, somewhere in BC, but in Ottawa and BC, they literally just stood right over the memorials and like waved their flags and sort of just, again, that's such bravado-y. I'm gonna say it's terrorist culture. It's like, it's so evil, right? But the need to assert dominance, and especially dominance over the victims of the plane you blew up, and then to claim that, oh, you're there to get real justice for the sick people. Like,
it is disgusting. I mean, can you imagine Al Qaeda going to the 9/11 memorial and putting up flag? It's
waving Al Qaeda flags at a 9/11 memorial to get justice for the real victims of 9/11.
Really, God,
I mean, that's exactly what this is.
That's exactly what this is, and and that's the reason I still believe, and I still think that the 9/11 memorial is not just for the families who died in that incident. It's for everybody. It's a symbol against terrorism. It's a symbol of hope. It's a symbol of love, and that's what
And
we
it
should have
serves
had
to
in India.
educate. And like,
Yes.
as someone who, again, I used, back in the day when I was a comedian, I used to give tours as well. And I once took a group of kids to New York, and these kids were born after 9/11. And to take them to the 9/11 memorial and like the museum down there is really important for them because they weren't alive when it happened. And for them to go to the memorial and be able to then to talk about it with their teachers and me and get the perspective of, it was like I could be like, listen, I was your age when this happened. Here's what it was like for me. And like that's important. It's incredibly important. And the fact that, I don't think what we have in Canada is enough. It's not enough to just have a plaque somewhere at Queen's Park or there. Like
Oh,
you need some thing of significance. The terrorist act deserves something big enough to catch the eye and large enough where it's not just a plaque, but where there can be some history etched in metal, so people can learn that, oh wow, this happened.
yes. Yes, of course. And I still pray and I hope that, you know, also, of course, through your medium, Kushal bhai, that you raised it, that, the government of India does concede and in their own wisdom decide to do this, because next year is we're coming on the 40th anniversary. And of course, number one, I hope somebody of significance from the Indian government does attend the memorial prayers in Cork Island. The last time somebody did was, from Manmohan Singh's Prime Minister's office, a minister had come at the 20th anniversary.
Hmm.
But also that, we start, I don't have to come back and travel to a foreign country at the 41st anniversary, or even the 40th for that matter, if I get an opportunity. Because this is something that will, and it doesn't have to be only about us or my family or us 329. We've had major terrorist, you know, attacks in India. Let's have a memorial against terrorism, and that's very important for us. You know, so and of course we have a one in Mumbai where we've had deadly attacks there on 26/11. But I think it's time that you know if our governments and our leaders do not remember the past and the sacrifices of civilians and citizens who died in the life, in carrying out the duty of the nation, we are condemned to repeat the history, and that's exactly what is happening today.
Yeah.
Because you have not recorded this in history, you will not see. I mean, and I was told yesterday there was a page in Canadian school books, ninth or 10th grade or whatever it was, which had a little write up about the 182 bombing, and about how culturalism and stuff like that, and terrorism. I believe that's all been ripped out of all the study books now, so it's no longer there. So it shows you how society changes over time when you do not remember and do not dedicate yourself to keeping alive the memories of those who've passed on before you. And that's something that I made my life's mission, and I want to ensure that the history and the factual history of this entire dark period in our lives is recorded. Long after the three of us are gone, it should be recorded, whether as a book or whether as as a documentary, as a memorial, because people must know the truth. You can't just create stuff as you go on. This is not a Chinese whisper story. So
Yeah, I mean, all I can say is shame on the government of India, irrespective of the political outfits involved here. That I don't know what holds them back. I mean, I know
Especially
what
now.
holds them back. Yeah, and now there is just no excuse. I mean, even now the plaque is in Kalina, and you need clearances to enter Kalina. Kalina, for those who don't know, is from where I am, from Mumbai, my city. And if you want to enter that, it is like you have to go through hoops to
there's a
just
military
go.
camp, and then
Yeah,
there's an airport and a
yeah,
runway.
yeah. It's just ridiculous. I know the spot Sanjay Bhai is talking about. To reach that spot to pay your respects is like a Herculean task in itself, and I just don't get it. I sincerely hope that the current Prime Minister Modi, pays heed. If they don't, I'm going after them on this subject. That's for sure. And some of us who have never hidden their political affiliation, I've never hidden my political voting patterns, but I'm deeply disappointed that the party that I vote for cannot even respect the victims of the Air India bombing in India, while we have 4 memorials over here in Canada. I mean, shame on them. That's
And
all I can say.
one in Ireland as well.
Yeah,
So
one in
5.
Ireland. And it's ridiculous. There is no other way to put it. There is no other way of saying that what the government of India is doing in this case, and for what, for whom. Like,
Is
I mean,
this is it like is this some BS like we're afraid of reprisal, and if we do a big memorial, then some people in the
yeah,
Punjab
it is.
politically might
It is.
get.
It is that. This is the
You know,
exact. I mean, you got it without even me trying to
Daniel,
explain
we have
it.
liberals in India as well. Remember?
Yeah, I'm telling
So
you, Daniel, that is
we've
the
got
case.
these
And
fringe.
let me tell you, it's not the prime minister. It
I know
is
this stuff.
the people in the bureaucracy that have
Yep.
surrounded. See, try and understand, Dan. Prime ministers come and go. Bureaucrats stay forever
Oh
in
yeah, yeah.
India.
Abolish the bureaucracy. All of
I've
that.
had a very senior collector once. I remember working. This is when, this is way, way, way before I used to go and work in villages. And this was a collector, a very senior person in Indian bureaucracy, tells me, "You're coming on behalf of a member of parliament. They come and go. We stay here forever."
Hmm.
The confidence of that bureaucrat. And he said that straight to my face, looking me in the eye. That's ridiculous. It's the
Yeah.
bureaucrats
Well,
that stop this stuff.
I mean, I hope things change because there needs to be, like I said, recognition. There needs to be, acknowledgement of a huge
Sanjay
human
bhai, we should
sacrifice.
start a petition to the Prime
Well,
Minister of India.
Kushal bhai, I'll leave it to you. I'm happy to start it.
No, no,
And I
I will
think,
promote it. I've
yeah,
and you know what? I know Barkha is on board. Let's have different walks of Indians, because nothing unites India like a Canada-India standoff.
oh yeah, I can see. There is one other thing.
You're welcome,
There is one other
India.
thing. That's the India-Pakistan thing, but that seems to be, simmering down. And thank God for
We're
what
like
Canada
we're like
did.
non-binary Pakistan with snow.
Well, and white, and white,
Yeah.
largely white.
It's
Yeah.
insane that how
It's
much it hurts me to the fact that it has come to a point that now for India, the number one whipping boy instead of Pakistan is Canada. Like, look at these numbers, right? Do you trust Canada's allegations against the Bishnoi gang? 65.6% Indians say absolutely bogus.
and
That's the word
that's
Indians are using.
that's a guy
Absolutely
who's in
bogus.
jail. That's a guy who's in jail, and they say he's bogus. I mean, just look at the nonsense. Crazy,
Do
crazy.
these people realize how full of shit these people are?
New conspiracy. Justin Trudeau is actually a hardcore Indian nationalist and against Islamists and Khalistanis, and he realizes that the future of the free world relies on a strong anti-terror India that's independent. So by being so ridiculous, he's trying to unite Indian society to form a strong global anti-terror
He's
coalition.
done well. He's done exceedingly well. Dan, I
Excellent.
gotta tell you,
That's my prime minister. You're welcome, guys. There you go, Justin Trudeau, a counter-terror fighter extraordinaire.
well, he must have been trained by the KGB. I've got to tell you that because he's really thought this one through, and
Yeah.
and it's
You know Justin Trudeau, a brilliant planner who thinks everything he says through thoroughly.
absolutely.
The irony is, when I was thinking about how do I design a thumbnail for this particular podcast, I came up with this conclusion that I think the perfect thumbnail was Hardeep Singh Nijjar holding a gun, wearing a T-shirt that says "Banana Republic,"
Yeah,
because that's all we can come up with.
and the best part, Kushal bhai, that photograph was taken on the rooftop of a house in Pakistan, Islamabad. I mean, if you separate go through that series of photographs, he's with three other terrorists. One of them was the killer of Dhyan Singh. I've got that entire series of photographs. It's coming in my next book. But it's the thing is, and it's in the Globe and Mail article as well. Let me
Yeah.
say it. The Globe and Mail. Somebody rated a community guideline against me on X, on Twitter yesterday, because I had written the Globe, and they said no, the Globe is a trashy paper. So I had to explain to them I meant the Globe and Mail. So I'm specifying this is the Globe and Mail that wrote an article which spoke of Niger's entire life, and they have traced it so beautifully. So that photograph is from there.
Yeah.
I
So
will
Dan,
say,
I know you have to go.
yeah,
So
I figured,
anything you
but
want to say before you leave us?
Yeah,
no, I think you said all this. I mean, to Sanjay's point, if you said the Globe in Canada, everyone knows you mean the Globe and Mail. That's what we call it. So I back
that's what
Sanjay.
I thought.
Yeah, it's just what we call it. We call it the Globe. We love shortening everything, especially in Toronto, right? Shortening everything is a sort of Canadian thing. We love abbreviations. So if you have something, the this and that, it, if you want to be if you're starting a law firm or anything in Canada, you want to be the first guy. Always be the first guy, because the Canadians won't say a second or third name usually. Listen, for me, it's sorry about Canada right now. That's all Canada can really say. We got a prime minister who's a bit of a wee. We're gonna get rid of him. We're in the final year of Trudeau, so we have one more year of Trudeau. It's now the 21st now, so their election must be August. The latest is October. Sorry, October 20th, 2025 is the latest possible date that Trudeau can have an election. It must be by then. So if the government doesn't fall, you're in your final year of Trudeau. Okay, you can count down, write the calendar dates. You can have a full calendar out and like days left to Trudeau. We've entered that. So may this final year of Trudeau be an easy one, and may we stop being non-binary Pakistan with snow. Inshallah. Amen. All right. I gotta go.
Amen.
You guys continue. I gotta go.
Lovely talking to you, Daniel. Thank you so much for coming on. And hopefully when we meet next, we can talk about another country and another leader rather than Trudeau.
I'm sure I'll see you somewhere sometime this
we'll
week.
see each other on various
all
TV
the time.
shows.
We're all this, so I'll see you later.
Somewhere.
I actually have to go to a terrorist training camp right now.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Take care. Take care, Dan.
Cheers, mate.
All right, Sanjay bhai. So now let's talk about the post kerfuffle reaction. Now I want to play a few clips, which is very worrying for me. Is that if so I don't understand. Like CTV is under attack because they aired an interview of the former Indian High Commissioner Sanjay Verma, but I'm still not able to figure this out. Like, what is the moral outrage in Canada about? So I just want to play a few clips, which are, I think, very important as far as this entire saga is concerned. So, let's listen to a few points. So it's very important why I'm playing certain clips to explain the context of what is happening here. This is a fact, and how we can corroborate this is that every time we have these kinds of oh, somebody said they couldn't hear the voice, so okay,
No, there
I
was no voice played at all.
sorry, well, my bad, sorry about that. Well, I'll play it in another way. Wait, let me play it again. So sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. I thought the audio would play, but clearly they did not play it. But I'll play this clip again so that people understand that something very weird is happening right now in Canada as far as this entire discussion is concerned. And the High Commissioner over here what he's saying is it's very, very important, and very important for everybody to listen to what the High Commissioner is saying here. And what he's saying can be corroborated easily, because I will give you 2-3 other examples of how we can understand how information is being fed by certain elements inside the Canadian establishment. And it's not good. It's not good because it is creating a false pretense and a false narrative when we should not be in this scenario. So let's hear it.
If they have evidence of what we have coerced, which can be legally accepted, why are they not sharing it? Because
I think they wanted
because the evidence, what they call these evidence, are hearsay, and I know for sure that they go from one person to the other, asking them about the hearsay. Most of them are those who are pro-Khalistan elements, anti-India elements, anti-India Canada elements, and then they take that as evidence.
So there you go. What the High Commissioner is saying is that the things that are presented as evidence in Canada is basically, I'm just going to say it simply, यार अभी मैं भी लोगों को जानता हूँ इधर. So ये लोग बात करते हैं, ये खालिस्तानी रिपोर्ट्स बनाते हैं और इनको दे देते हैं, और ये लोग उसको कन्वीनियंटली लीक करते रहते हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, यू रिसेंटली हैड अ मीडिया मॉनिटरिंग रिपोर्ट that the Canadians came up with, where Anand Ranganathan ke jokes were part of foreign interference. That's the level. Shivarur, Anand Ranganathan, ANI. Yeah. I was like half jealous, साला मेरा नाम नहीं आया, इतनी बजा रहा हूँ इनकी इधर बैठ के. I was like, यार इतनी मेहनत
अगले बार आएगी.
Yes, मतलब so sad. #sad life. मेरा नाम नहीं आया. But maybe technically they cannot call me foreign interferences because I'm a permanent resident also. So they were like, so this is one. I just want to play these clips so that people get an understanding of what these are very important aspects. And then the High Commissioner said this.
The Canadian agencies which are talking to us have not given a shred of evidence, including on the 12th October meeting in Singapore, for us to act upon. You cannot see, gone are the days when the so-called developed countries or Western Bloc would ask a developing country, you must do this, and they will run after them and do it. We are a rule of law country, as Canada prides itself to be a rule of law country. So won't you give me evidences which are suitable for my own legal process?
Now,
I agree with what the High Commissioner said there. You can't base an international relation on hearsay and conjecture. And that's all what the Canadian government or the investigators were offering. And you contrast this, very important, Kushal, you contrast this with what the US has done. Now, the US allegedly is the one who passed on some Five Eyes intelligence to Canada, a year ago. And that's how all this happened. But look at how the US has packaged and presented its evidence to India, sat across the table, discussed. Whereas here, these guys are pulling out other people's reports. Now, of course, they're talking about, I'm sure India has a bone to pick with the US as well. At some point, that will come out. You already have the David Headley case. You now have Panoon, who's a wanted terrorist. You have other people. So this is going to, follow the course of legalese and courts and emerge eventually. But it's done in a diplomatically acceptable manner. The nonsense that the Canadian government has done is absolutely amateurish, really amateurish. And there was no evidence that they presented. Now, of course, the inquisitor in chief in that interview kept telling him, they wanted to present it to you. They wanted to present. Well, you don't cook up a visa request on the 8th of October and say, I'm meeting on the 8th of October. Who are you meeting? Well, I don't know. I'll reach there and meet them. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Somebody from India just can't get up and say, I'm going to meet Trudeau. And I'll figure out if Trudeau's not there, I'll catch somebody. It doesn't work like that in international. Yeah. Well, a lot of some Canadians may have found it, you're avoiding, you're evading. But the question I ask you is, put the proof out there in the public. You've neither filed a charge sheet, nor have you filed, indictment, which is in the American case, it has happened. So you've got nothing, hocus pocus. And another important thing is Canada has mentioned at some point about, the gangsters and all that stuff. Hey, hello, dial back a couple of years and please read extradition requests from India for those very same gangsters that you're talking about. They're also on the list. So these guys keep conveniently forgetting the truth. Nobody talks that, my wanted criminal was on a no-fly list, and of course he died. Of course, I don't let me be very clear. I do not subscribe to any school of thought that condones extrajudicial killings. No, I don't. I'm not one of those Rambo guys who says, let's jump in, and if we go to war, we go to war. That's with, our enemies or whatever. This is a friendly country. And like we said, there's people-to-people ties. I have relatives in that country. I have, friends, dear friends, lots of long-term linking. But so do many, many millions of Indians. You don't just jump up and throw the baby out with the bathwater, really, so to speak. You've got to look at this deeper, I feel, and they didn't bother.
Yeah.
And the High Commissioner is very correct. I watched his interview a couple of times. It was blocked, like I said. I downloaded it and posted it on my Twitter handle, and hopefully it will spread and people will read and understand, and Canada will realize its own stupidity. I don't want to either pull down a investigative force or criticize or anything, but we already know, that the RCMP hasn't covered itself in glory in the last 40 years in a number of investigations. I can, read the whole list down, because being involved with during our bombing and our investigation, I know exactly what and how, eventually happened. So it doesn't give much confidence to anybody. So, I just hope that things turn around. I was hoping, actually Dan left, but I was hoping to ask, I believe there was a petition and there may have been a change of leadership, but, whether something is happening there or not happening. But I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of uncertainty in even in people-to-people relations, because, there's so much of uncertainty, fear. You don't know what, the atmosphere is. Of course, we've got 437,000 students studying in Canada, Indian students, and that's a huge number. I would not be off the mark if I said it's probably the number one lot of students who are studying in Canada. And, I worry for them. And I hope that, Canada gets its act together and starts, looking after their well-being. First of all, I'm sure the Indian government will too. So, yeah.
Yeah. And talking about RCMP, this is a poignant quote from Tasha Kheriddin. She's a Canadian intellectual. She's known here. Perhaps you don't remember the Liberal government burying the Sidewinder report in 1997, or the political bombshell that was the RCMP investigation of Ralph Goodell in 2005 election. If you don't think the force has and can be politicized, I have many bridges to sell you. This is a Canadian. This is a Canadian saying that. And it's honestly, it's beyond disgusting now that, listen, I am no defender of the CBI or anything in India. I mean, we have enough stories in India of the CBI being grossly misused by the political class. But for the Canadians to go around pretending that, you third worldias, hamari force to bahut hai. Get freaking real. You guys are as politicized as it gets, and especially after this comment from the RCMP representative, like, what else is left to take these people seriously for? Like, listen to this.
Side. And so, just so I understand, did that decision to come out publicly on Monday, unplanned decision, did it prevent a crime from happening, a homicide or something else from happening? Did it stop that from happening?
No, there was no imminent threat coinciding with this public announcement. We were planning this proactive approach for some time, but it's just the events leading up last week, and then also following the October 12th meeting, there was reporting in the Indian media that was false, and we also wanted to correct the record.
Got it.
So what was exactly false in Indian media? We don't know.
No, rubbish. That was a rubbish statement.
All rubbish. It's
what
all
is
rubbish.
telling-
Basically, in good old Indian भाषा, ये लोगों को अपने politician को बचाना था. प्रधानमंत्री ने बोला तू शहीद हो जा, और ये लोग शहीद हो गए हैं. कड़वी सच्चाई बोलो ना यार, तुम लोग भी बिकाऊ हो हमारे देश के बिकाऊ लोगों के जैसे. That's all it is.
नहीं, simple बात ये थी. Very important statement she made. We had planned this for a long time in advance. Now you connect this with another fact that I told you, that the World Sikh Organization, WSO, released its statements in 13 countries by the 10th or 12th minute of this press conference. So the press conference wasn't even completed. They had already released a statement, which means that it had been planned with the government and the police. Now, talking about the RCMP, it will be unfair. They've been decent with us, though they've not been successful. We've had 40 years of failure. But I want to point this out for those who say, and the anchor that tried to tell the High Commissioner, Mr. Verma, that the RCMP is independent. I mean, let's look at the RCMP's track of investigation. Let's go. Of course, the Air India 182 Kanishka was a mess. Witnesses died. Tapes were erased. People who'd given statements, they refused to come back. They didn't take care. The witness protection was not existent. Let's go to the Robert Picton case. Let's go to the barn burning scandal. Let's go to the indigenous women's deaths. Party Quebecois, I can tell you the world famous, Maher Arar. I don't need to, remind people what that was. That was in 2000 or maybe 2002, just around the Air India 182 bombing, for which, of course, the later Canadian Prime Minister apologized in maybe 2007 or 2008. Look at the Ian Bush incident. Look at the Zikansky. There are about 30, 40, black spots which are politically motivated or motivated by bad blood. So please, let's not say that the RCMP is independent and is above board. It happens across the world. It's not, Canada is not heaven. It happens in India, it happens in the US, it happens in Pakistan, it happens in the UK, it happens in Japan, it happens in Korea. We hear of all these things. So let's understand that governments of the day use police machinery or whatever machinery that they have, criminal investigation machinery, to suppress truths, to bend the rod, so to speak. And like you, Kushal, I'm also, I've also supported the same grouping, the party. So it's not that I'm saying that, my country is free from this or your country is free from that, or no, let's face facts. We all know, how political systems misuse investigative agencies. So there is no doubt in my mind that Canada was and is misusing the RCMP in this particular case. And it will eventually surface. The truth will out, either today or tomorrow. The truth will out. You could, paint it green, paint it yellow, paint it any color, and you're not going to see, if it smells like crap and it tastes like crap, it's got to be crap. So all these hocus pocus allegations are going to die down, and eventually the truth will come out. If it is an extrajudicial killing, I'll be the first to stand up and criticize it, of course. But I'd like to tell you this, that I believe that our people would not have done something like this. Could have been a stray guy, could have been someone. But I want to believe that it is far more than that. Nobody's asking how Malik died. Do you hear any cries in Canada? The guy was I sat across the table. I went for the criminal trial of the Air India 182 Kanishka. I was in Vancouver in that specially built, bulletproof courtroom. And Kushal, I was, maybe 8, maybe 10 feet away. Families were sitting on the benches. These two guys were in the cages, maybe 10, 12 feet. They were smirking throughout. So he was the poster boy. He was the fund manager. He was the investment banker of this entire exercise. He got away, of course, in the trial. But karma comes around. He came to the inquiry. He got, finger pointed there. Eventually, who killed him? Why aren't they saying that the Indians bumped him off? Why aren't the RCMP solving that crime first? Because he had, at this stage of his life, he probably had very little political support or very little political following. Whereas, Nijjar obviously had a lot. So I see, a lot of webs within these cobwebs. And I think that, the common sense Canadian people who are good people, and of course I know the good Indians in Canada and the good Sikhs in Canada will eventually see through this BS for what it is and do it. I just want to take, I'm looking at the comments. There are plenty of comments on your
No,
YouTube.
Sanjay bhai, I understand you have to leave. I'll look
No, I
at
don't
all the
believe.
other.
I just wanted to answer to a comment that somebody has made. Somebody from Mumbai who speaks about the Cabbage Patch doll that was found in the wreckage of the Air India bombing, which was my sister's, and he said, I just got to know, but yes, it was, and that was one of the most endearing images of the Kanishka going down. One is the wing cowling, and one was the Cabbage Patch doll, which was my sister's. Thank you for mentioning it. I mean, you've got so many comments. I can't even go through them. I was trying to read them while we were talking to address them. But yeah, and I look at all this and I look back and I say, I hope that the government of Canada and the people of Canada realize that number one, you're exhuming people who are deceased and people whom you have consigned to history as martyrs and people who lost their lives in a ghastly terrorist accident, terrorist incident, not accident, 39 years ago, 40, coming around 40. We don't want to go through that pain again. And, you can't rewrite history to say it differently just because it suits one group of political people or another. We need to focus on the lives going forward. And for my own country and my own government, I'd like to say that it's time we recognized the sacrifices of let's not count them as 331 people, 2 in Tokyo and 329 here, but talk of the hundreds and thousands of people who have died at the hands of terrorism across the world and in India especially, that we need to dedicate ourselves and dedicate this in memory so that nobody will ever try to rewrite history or change the narrative going ahead in the future. Thank you. Thank you.
Irony is that we should have had a Khalistan attack memorial in Punjab, but considering the reality of Punjab, we can't do that. The least we can do is we have it in some other state in India, and we act. I'm a Punjabi. There is not one single person, even though I was born and raised in Mumbai, we have family in Punjab, and there is not even a single family of Punjabi origin that may not have a horror story to share from what happened in the 1980s to the mid 90s before KPS Gill dealt with it in Punjab in true Punjabi style. And to not have an Air India bombing memorial is an insult to every well-meaning Punjabi, if you ask me, of India. And there are many of us. There are crores of us. There are, and to see this kind of lackadaisical behavior from the government, I mean, when it comes to the memorial, I can say it's just disgusting. It's disgusting. I don't care.
Yes.
I don't care whether it's the BJP or Congress or Shiva Sena and any other party. If all the political outfits of India know through surveys that an overwhelming number of Indians are united on this issue, and they cutting across political lines abhor Khalistan, abhor the idea, then might as well have a memorial for the victims of the Air India bombing. And
Yes.
it's not like members of the Sikh community did not pass away in that flight.
They did. They did.
I
And they
mean,
were affected. And of course, I know, I mean, I'm the first one to recognize, the horrors of 1984. I'm the first ones to recognize, other riots that have happened in our country. Uh, but it doesn't mean that we forget, you know, crimes of this nature. It doesn't mean we forget those crimes either. I absolutely agree with you, Kushal, on every point. And there is no two thoughts in my mind that Khalistanis and Sikhs and Punjabis are completely different. These Khalistanis are a blot on uh, the community, really, if you ask me. And I feel sad that they have not yet given up their hope. They only need to look at other parts of India. I know Kashmir has had its struggles. The east, northeast has had its struggles. But look at where we are in 2024. India is still strong. It's still one, and it's still united, and it will stay that way. So nothing is going to change. No borders are going to be redrawn or rewritten in India. Like you said, we spoke sometime earlier in the show. Just a few hours ago, Dr. Jaishankar announced that he's reached an agreement with China. I hope in due course we will, and that our Prime Minister is flying out to Russia for the BRICS summit. Uh, Possibly there may be a bilateral meeting with the Chinese premier, which will be a big thaw, icebreaker at that point. Uh, Hopefully, in time, we will get our, the land and stuff that has been occupied or taken over in the last 3-4 years. But be that as it may, these struggles that are going on for secessionism are not going to succeed. And it will, you and I will be gone. But India is an idea. India is a nation. It's not going to change. That's my.
yeah. So somebody had asked one question, which I will answer from the audiences. They had asked, "Hey, Daniel and Kushal, do you think if conservatives come back to power, there will be actions against Khalistanis? As all I can see is both parties doing the same Khalistani vote." Let me put it this way: I don't know how else to mince my words here. I'm actually not even known for something like that. I mean, having political tact is not something that I'm known for. I mean, in fact, इसके लिए मेरे को पसंद भी नहीं करते हैं बहुत लोग कि मैं इतना पेल देता हूँ लोगों को. But let me just put these photos up. मैं आपको साफ शब्दों में, ladies and gentlemen, कह रहा हूँ. As long as these are the faces of the Conservative Party of Canada,
I mean, I know.
I'm going straight on here, ladies and gentlemen. You're not going to see a lot of change. And something that bothers me even more is that they want to trade with India. Let me tell you what my source is. This is an inside story. So last year when we had sent back a few low level representatives from the Canadian consulates, right? Last year bhi ye tamasha hua tha. So somebody from Alberta had reached out to India. Arey, we are friendly with you. Don't send our person back. Alberta has a conservative government, and India honored that agreement. India honored the request of the conservatives. But then conservatives put faces like this. And you can go and see their public statements during the farmers' protest, during 1984 investigations, during many other things related to India. If you can show me one tweet from these four faces where they have categorically criticized Khalistan using the word Khalistan, I am willing to change my point of view. But I can assure you, you will not find one. What you will find is sly ways of justifying it. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're going to ask me whether the conservatives are going to change anything, well, I remain skeptical. Now, one thing, during Prime Minister Harper's time, I want to appreciate Prime Minister Harper. He had a rule. He would never go to a religious place that had any kind of extremist elements in their promotion. That's a fact. Prime Minister Harper ke time pe relations were good. And
They were
Justin,
great.
yeah, they were great. Prime Minister Harper would not go to a Khalistani Gurdwara. He would avoid it like a plague. Could he control it completely? No, but he would avoid a lot of things, Prime Minister Harper.
I met him twice, and
Yeah.
at the 20th anniversary, where I think Martin was then the Prime Minister and Harper took over a little later. And yes, he was a straight, honest guy. He's also the person who eventually ordered Justice John C. Major's inquiry.
Yes.
The families kept pleading and lobbying and fighting and asking for it, and Canada just blackballed us and stonewalled us. But Harper did,
Yeah,
and
he's a good
Harper was
man.
also, he was a straight, decent guy. And incidentally, if I remember correctly, I think Tim Uppal was a smaller figure in his government at that time.
Mhm.
But he's changed considerably, I think, over the years. And it does appear at some point that you will have a conservative government coming to power. Whether what kind of sheep they will be, we don't know, considering the fact that they were on stage together with with Trudeau and with Jagmeet for the Baisakhi parade, where you had Parmar in the background and the
Pierre
backdrop.
Poilievre was there. Pierre
Of course,
Poilievre
I
was
know he
there.
was there. Of
Yeah,
course I was
Pierre was there.
there.
So my point is, why is Pierre going there? And I know Pierre is aware of this, but here is where the point comes. Will the members of the Hindu Sikh community of Canada, especially, and the onus now more lies on the Hindu community of Canada, and even more on the leadership of the Hindu community of Canada. When I say leadership, I mean social representatives, not
Yes.
political representatives. Will will organizations who do activism, will trustees of Hindu temples, will they have the cojones to go and say anything? Well, I can tell you many stories where a Gora politician goes to a mandir in British Columbia and says, listen to this story. मैं मंदिर का नाम भी बोल सकता हूं, मैं आउट ऑफ डिसेंसी नहीं बोल रहा हूं, क्योंकि मेरे सोर्सेज हर जगह होते हैं कम्युनिटी में. ये गोरा जाता है अंदर प्राइमरीज के टाइम पे. He goes and speaks with the committee of the mandir and tells them, I will not go to any place where there is a yellow flag, the Khalistanis. Basically वो ये कह रहा था. Guess who the mandir committee ends up supporting?
The other guy.
Yes. मैं आपको पर्सनली टाइप करके अलग से भेज रहा हूं मंदिर का नाम, आप खुद चेक कर लेना. और इट इज सो डिस्गस्टिंग जो यहां पे घुसे हुए हैं, ये लोग खालिस्तानी अंदर. ये मंदिर है, मैं आपको बोल रहा हूं, क्योंकि मुझे जो लोग उस मीटिंग में गए थे उन्होंने सामने से बोला, बिकॉज दे वर डिस्गस्टेड.
नहीं, but ये Hindu leadership, when we speak, I talk a lot with the Hindu leadership in America, Hindu American Foundation and HAF and everything. And I see there's so much of difference between how the Hindus, of course, let me also
दो एक्ट नहीं, हिंदू अमेरिकन और कोना बेचारे फिर भी थोड़ा बहुत काम कर रहे हैं. ये मैं आपको बता रहे हैं, मंदिर, यार मंदिर इज द प्लेस जिसको खड़ा होना चाहिए, बोलना चाहिए नो खालिस्तान.
True.
मैं आपको बता रहा हूं, ये मंदिर का मैंने आपको नाम बताया है.
हाँ, देखा है मैंने.
अब क्या करे आदमी, और ये वन ऑफ द बिगेस्ट मंदिर है उधर का. 40-40 हजार लोग जाते हैं उधर, 40-40 हजार लोग दर्शन करने जाते हैं, और ये लोग ये करते हैं. अब मैं कितनों का नाम बोलूं, मैं कितनों को नंगा करूं. सिर्फ लास्ट थर्सडे को, क्योंकि मैंने श्याम शर्मा शो जो हमारा दूसरा शो है उस पे मैंने बोल दिया, वो आग लगी हुई है. और मालूम है एलिगेशंस क्या आती है, हम कुशल को एक्सपोज करेंगे कि वो गाली देता है. अबे ये कोई एक्सपोज करना है मेरे को, मैं तो देता ही हूँ गाली. मैं तो नॉन हूं उसके लिए.
मुंबई का है तो गाली देना ही पड़ेगा.
अरे मैं तो पैदा ही वैसा हुआ था, मैं तो पैदा ही ये हुआ. अगर तुम्हारे पास एटलीस्ट, मगर एटलीस्ट मैं कम्युनिटी, सो ट्राई एंड अंडरस्टैंड. सो दिस इशू अगेन, because I know I have a giant listener base in Canada too. To every Canadian Hindu, take this very seriously. And if the conservatives want to deal, I think this answer by in the same interview, this is a very good clip. It is a 2.5 minute clip But I think the ambassador प्यार से चपेड़ मार के गया है कि basically we reserve the right to do whatever we want to do. I think this is a very important clip, and the conservatives should listen to this one bit in the end that the ambassador said when he was asked this question.
First of all, will your colleagues be replaced? Like, will you and your colleagues, when you leave, is the government of India going to replace you?
That is a discussion we will have with the Canadian side. Largely given the mistrust that we have on Mr. Trudeau and his team, will have concerns, and we'll discuss it very carefully with them. Our security and safety are concerned. So there are so many things. Khalistani extremists are being encouraged all the time. I also know, again, this is my allegation, I'm not giving you any evidence on that. I also know that some of these Khalistani extremists and terrorists are deep assets of CSIS. So I'm giving that acquisition. Again, I'm not giving you an evidence.
Without evidence, just the same thing you're
Same thing which
criticizing
Trudeau
the
did.
government.
Yes.
Yeah, but why would you do the same thing you're criticizing the government of?
Because that is what is understood by the Canadian politicians. That someone stands on the floor of the parliament, says something which he later says, I didn't have any hard evidence. And that was taken as biblical truth.
But you're criticizing the Prime Minister, and then I'll just point out doing the same thing. I want to move on, though, because I asked if you will be replaced. Will your government allow the Canadian diplomats who have been expelled to be replaced?
But see, the same thing. It is a matter of conversation between the two governments. As for the relationship itself is concerned, it is a large relationship. Canada had been a friend of India. Canada will remain a friend of India. There had been issues between two countries that many countries have. That's not a surprise. We only want the Canadian regime of the day, the government of the day, to understand my core concerns and try to act on that sincerely, rather than being bedfellows with those who are trying to challenge Indian sovereignty and territorial integrity. And mind you, the largest Sikh population in the world is in India. They undergo elections at least every 5 years. Their election voting percentage is much higher than any time of Canadian elections. So I can go on and on this, but the short point is that what happens to India will be decided by Indians. These Khalistani terrorists and extremists who are based out of Canada are not Indians, they are Canadian citizens, and no government should encourage their citizens to attack sovereignty and territorial integrity of other countries.
And to be clear, the government of India should not seek to extrajudicially harm those people.
Come with you. I'm extremely
Correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So if this message was more for the conservatives, less for the liberals.
Very powerful, clip that you've played. Very powerful, because he makes very certain basic tenets of international law. And I love the way he said, that a lot of the Khalistanis are deep assets of CSIS. And he's right, because even when you go back into the Air India bombing, Kanishka, you will find that there were, moles of the FBI and, allegedly the CSIS, RCMP, who were embedded in that organization, in those organizations. And they had prior knowledge. So I think the High Commissioner is absolutely right. And he's put it very bluntly. I would say, Kushal, in my own personal estimation as a student of international law and politics, that Canada has gotten away lightly, in the sense that if it were left to me and you saw my tweets, and I believe we should have cut even people to people trade. I said that, I'm on record. But I think the government has taken a step back and said, there are families on both sides. There's billions of dollars of trade. Let's understand that. And there is a trade deficit. If India pulls out, it would have hurt Canada more than India. India has other trading partners, as I'm sure Canada has. But there's a lot of Canadian money also sunk into the Indian economy.
Pension funds.
Pension funds, yes. And I can name at least 2 or 3 provinces who've sunk in big chunks of money. So there's a lot to lose. And I think, wiser counsel should prevail, both, of course, in the Conservatives, there is already seemingly some, but in the Liberals. And I hope, they work towards repairing this. It's been an up and down relationship for 40,
I
50
don't
years.
agree on this. I believe the Canadians work in a very smart way, where the conservatives, through their provinces, always want to trade with India, because
Mm.
people don't realize most provinces are controlled by conservatives in Canada.
Conservatives.
At the state level, the conservatives are way more powerful politically than at the federal level. At the federal level, you have a Trudeau government. At the state level, so whether it's Saskatchewan and India buying lentils from them, whether it's coal briquettes that are supplied from other states, Alberta needs to worry about some things. Ontario wants to send a delegation to India. I know it for a fact that India has held it. And these words, in the end, I did not show that in the clip, but in the end, the High Commissioner had said there will be emotions on both sides. I understand the emotions, which might impact some of those deals. I think the
Yes,
High
of course.
Commissioner has said what he had to say,
Title
because
is gone.
he's a
And we all
diplomat
know.
after all.
And he
But
can't say, things that maybe you or I could say. But yeah, a
yeah,
lot of those trade deals will go down the tubes.
no, and
Especially
they
the
should,
defense
and
deals.
they should. I think they should go down the tube, and the conservatives need to step up. If the conservatives want to be taken seriously by the government of India, irrespective of who the government of India is being run by, Congress or BJP, the conservatives need to get their act together. By having faces like that, even the RCMP hearing on the India interference, उन्होंने भेजा किसको?
Ah,
टिमुप्पल और जसराज हल्लन को. Why? My question is, why did the conservatives do what they did? So these things matter. These should not be taken lightly. And what happens, honestly, Sanjay bhai, aapke case mein kya? You were forced to understand Canada because of your personal tragedy.
yes, of course. Yes.
What I have noticed in the entire Indian media landscape is they don't understand Canada and inside baseball of Canadian politics. मुझे भी नहीं आता था. मैं यहाँ पे रहना शुरू हो गया, तब मेरे को समझना शुरू हो गया ये लोग हो कर क्या. ये है ना, ये मिल के हमको बेवकूफ बनाते हैं. हमारा जो डिप्लोमेट इधर आता है, विद ड्यू रिस्पेक्ट टू द काउंसलेट्स, वो 3 साल के पोस्टिंग के लिए आता है, उसको कोई लेना देना नहीं है. उसको कोई लेना. आई हैव हर्ड हॉरिफाइंग स्टोरीज. अभी संजय भाई, मैं ज्यादा बोलूंगा ना कि कैसे कैसे पासपोर्ट निकाले गए हैं, कैसे कैसे पासपोर्ट निकाले गए हैं खालिस्तानियों के, तो मतलब फिर बात निकलेगी तो बहुत दूर तक जाएगी, बहुत दूर तक जाएगी. ऐसे ऐसे घटिया घटिया हरकतें हमारे ये जो लोग हैं यहाँ पे कर रहे हैं. ये कंजर्वेटिव्स क्या करते हैं, मीठा बनते हैं और अपना ट्रेड करते रहते हैं. और कनाडा का काम हो गया ना, ट्रेड हो रहा है. और लिबरल से खालिस्तानियों का करते रहते हैं. इंडिया का सॉल्व कैसे होगा प्रॉब्लम? इंडिया की ओनली लेवरेज इनके ऊपर ट्रेड है. हमारी लेवरेज सिर्फ ट्रेड है.
ट्रेड और स्टूडेंट्स.
बस ये बंद कर दो, अपने आप लाइन पे आ जाएंगे. मैं खुला बोल रहा हूँ, अपने आप लाइन पे आ जाएंगे.
That is my view. मेरा भी एकदम on this. I'm you can call me a hardliner, you can call me, but I believe unless you cause pain economically, a government is not going to change its views.
Yeah, and one of those rare occasions where I agree with the 6 for Justices, they have demanded the Indian consulates in Canada to be shut down. Thumbs up to that. बंद करो, कनाडा वालों का भी उधर बंद करो, चंडीगढ़ काउंसलेट बंद करो, फिर देखो ये लोग कैसे सुधरते हैं. I know, let's have it. Let the Canadians experience what happens when you completely derail ties with India. Maybe then they will come into senses. But before we wrap up, Sanjay bhai, any other thing that you wanted to talk about?
No, I just want to thank you and your viewers. You've borne with me for almost 2 hours, and I'm just thankful. And then I hope that through this chat that Dan, you and me have had, a lot of contours of the relationship of the 182 Kanishka bombing of the trial, a lot of fallacies that were being spread. This is especially for your Canadian viewers, that get unraveled and you look deeper. Of course, like Dan correctly said, not who did it, but who should they have. In you talking about a terrorist, let's understand that. Yes, of course, you had terrorists in various religious locations in other parts of the world. Let's understand what we are speaking about. Your freedom fighter is the world's terrorist. So even Saddam felt that way. So let's understand that we're talking about people who have taken lives Let's remember there were 86 children on board Air India 182 Kanishka. They were babies and they were up to the age of 10. I'm talking about out of that 280 odd that you talked, the number out of the 329. Remember, there were 86 kids. So, let that sink in your mind that they put bombs to blow up little kids. And that's all I want to leave you with, that thought. So,
Yeah, and once again, Sanjay bhai, thank you very much for coming, and I'm really sorry about what you
no,
had
no,
to go through as a
thanks.
person, and I applaud you for your bravery, for gutsing it out for so many years. I promise you, as far as that the memorial is concerned, मैंने आपको फोन पे भी कहा था
Oh,
कि
yeah, of
मैं
course.
जब तक है मैं लड़ते रहूंगा इस मेमोरियल के लिए आपके साथ. I'm not going to back out, and I hope the listeners of this podcast, uh, you understand, and reach out to the government of India and tell the government of India that India should have a proper memorial for the Air India bombing, which is a tragedy, and we should remember the victims. Also, ladies and gentlemen, you can follow Sanjay bhai and Daniel both. I have left their X handles in the description of the podcast. You can also buy Sanjay bhai's book on Amazon. I have left the link,
On
Amazon link.
Kindle.
Yeah, it's free on Kindle, and you can also buy the a paperback copy on Amazon. The link is there in the description of the podcast. If you are a Canadian, do remember on the 9th of November we have our celebration of the Canadian Hindu Heritage Month. And if you guys are in and around Toronto, Canada, in the Greater Toronto region, please do come. Sham hoga, main hu, Daniel Boardman hoga. A lot of us are going to be there, and we have one more surprise guest, which will not be announced. It is for your surprise, and believe me, that surprise will be worth the wait. I can promise all of you that the surprise will be worth the wait. So if you have not registered till now, I would encourage all of you to go right now on your mobile phone or wherever you are, scan this QR code, register yourself right now, because listen, we have barely got a few spots left now. Already मतलब बहुत सारी registrations हो चुकी हैं. सो बाद में मेरे को मत बोलना, बिकॉज आई थिंक मोस्ट लाइकली हम लोग ये मंथ एंड में हमको बंद करनी पड़ेंगी रजिस्ट्रेशन, विच इज सैड कि मगर आई एम हैप्पी दैट इतनी जल्दी हो गई रजिस्ट्रेशन. तो इसीलिए बोल रहा हूँ, अगर कैनेडियन हो या अमेरिकन हो इन एंड अराउंड इस एरिया में, रजिस्टर राइट नाउ. एंड बाद में मेरे को गाली मत देना कि कुशल भाई मैं रजिस्टर नहीं कर पाया. भाई मंथ एंड तक मोस्ट लाइकली रजिस्ट्रेशन बंद करनी पड़ेगी जिस रेट पे हो रहा है. तो अभी रजिस्टर कर लो, and I will see you guys next time once again. Till then, namaste, take care, bye bye.